Hey, we're Saints. Father Chris here. Welcome to our crucifixion live stream. I'm glad to have you beautiful people with us as we begin Christmas week. We are going to celebrate the Lord's birth this week on Wednesday. And today, so we're going to talk about that throughout the week. And I'm going to talk about that famous and sometimes confusing genealogy from the Gospel of Matthew. I preached on it yesterday, so I'm excited about it. I got it. I think I cracked it open finally. And, it makes you wonder what the heck is going on with all those names, right? Like if you read the opening chapter of Matthew, which we will do so together right now, you will see this long list of names, and they're funny names, and who are these guys, and we go back through scripture and we try to find their stories as if we're going to historicize them. I think Matthew is playing a very different game than to historicize the events or personalize the characters, as you shall soon see. All of that to say, note that he starts with Abraham, not Adam. Luke starts with Adam. He goes all the way back to the first man. But in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus is the fulfillment of the promise made to Abraham. And it says to Abraham, you will be the father of all these nations. And the kingdom that I establish, God, will be through one of your descendants, David, right? Which, keep in mind too, warrior saints, the name David in Hebrew, Dod, means beloved, right? The one who is loved, or particularly by God. That's what the name David means. So Abraham receives the promise that kingdom is established in David, but as we'll see, it goes sideways, and Jesus Christ has to save everything, which is interesting because his name means salvation, which we'll see that as well. So with all of that in mind, here is the final intro I'm going to give you. The genealogy in Matthew is broken down into three, we call them triads, three different parts. From Abraham to David, from David to the deportation to Babylon, when the Babylonians came in and conquered and destroyed the city of Jerusalem and took them as slaves, and from the deportation to the Christ. So Abraham to David to the deportation to Jesus Christ. Here we go. The beginning. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, Isaac the father of Jacob, Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers. All right, so we know this story. Abraham, he was gifted this son by God through his barren wife Sarah, who had Isaac, the promise, and she becomes the mother of, and Abraham therefore the father of Jacob/Israel, where the tribes begin. And he begins with Judah. So things are, there's a lot of chaos in their stories, but in this line, Judah starts to make a mess. Watch what happens. Here we see Judah, the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Well, Father Chris, why that's a big deal? Well, Tamar was Judah's daughter-in-law. Ew, right? And she tricked him into sleeping with her by being a harlot. Right? What's going on there? Well, whatever's going on there, which I'll explain, it's a little bit sideways, right? You don't sleep with your father-in-law, and you definitely don't trick him by playing a prostitute, right? Well, that already starts to take this line from Abraham to David a little sideways. Perez, the father of Hezron, Hezron, Ram, the father of Amminadab, Amminadab, the father of Nahshon, Nahshon, the father of Salmon, and Salmon, the father of Boaz by Rahab. Who's Rahab? She too is a harlot. Do you see what's happening here? All of a sudden, this line from Abraham to David is way off kilter. You got two harlots in there. And remember, here's why I even say it. It's not about prostitution. Harlotry in Scripture, particularly in the Old Testament, well, in the New as well, in both Testaments. Harlotry, adultery, this word is always in reference to worshiping another god. Scripture uses harlotry as a metaphor to show you about harlotry, right? The metaphor of harlotry to talk about idol worship. Let me say that again. Scripture uses as its main metaphor for idolatry, for abandoning God, the image, the metaphor of adultery. And now in this first line, you got two of them. Then it gets to Rahab, to Boaz, Obed, Ruth, Obed, the father of Jesse, Jesse, the father of David the king. So that first line, Abraham to David, way off track. Okay, all right, second triad. Let's get back on track. And then it starts. And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah. Wait a minute. All of a sudden, this thing is going crazy. And David's going to save the day. And he has his first son, Solomon, the wise king. And how does he have this son? By a woman whose husband he had killed because he was horny and wanted her as his own wife. Oh no, this thing is already way off track. Like, what the hell's going on in this book, right? Craziness. All right, let's watch it. It keeps going. Solomon, the father of Rehoboam. What does Rehoboam do? Ooh, he's bad. He worships other gods. Read 1st and 2nd Kings. Rehoboam, the father of Abijah, the father of Asa, the father of Jehoshaphat. What's going on there, right? It's not a dude. Don't miss it. Jehoshaphat means Yahweh will judge. Yahweh has judged. So the Lord is like, he's telling us he's coming into the picture. He's going to take things into his own hands, right? Jehoshaphat, Joram, the father of Uzziah, the father of Jotham, the father of Ahaz. And here you get Ahaz, the father of Hezekiah, which rolls into verse 10. Hezekiah, who was a righteous king, right? He found the law and he was like, oh my gosh, we got to come back. But then he's the father of Manasseh, the father of Amos, who leads to Josiah. And Manasseh and Amos were the most wicked of all the kings, the most idolatrous of all of the most adulterous of all the kings. They have Josiah, he tried to have reform and come back, but it ends with Jeconiah, his son, and their deportation to Babylon. So now you can see Abraham to David went sideways. You'd hope David get it back on track, but he starts it off, and now it ends with utter abandonment, deportation, right? Third triad. Please, Lord, let something happen. Oh, it does. Watch this. And the deportation of Babylon, Jeconiah, Shealtiel, the father of Zerubbabel. That's a great name. Zerah in Hebrew means the seed, meaning your line, your seed. And Babel, right? It's the seed of Babel. They were born in Babylon, and yet they're so far off track, right? It's crazy. Zerubbabel, the father of Abiud. That name's great. I'll skip it for time's sake. Eliakim, who's the father of Azor. And then something happens. All these guys are a train wreck, and Azor becomes the father of Zadok. Now, what's the deal with this Zadok? Zadok is from the Hebrew Sadaqah. For those who speak Arabic, like we say Sadiq. Righteousness. So now all of a sudden, God is saying that there's got to be something implanted in the middle of these triads because it's all crazy, right? Zadok is put right in the middle of the third triad because now everything's going this way and there's that pivot, it's going to come back. And Zadok is the father of Achim, which means the brethren, who is the father of Eliud, which means God is the father of Judah, not Abiud. If you look at it, you'll see back there a moment ago, Abiud means my father, the king. The king is the father of Judah. Now we're seeing that God, is the king of Judah, not this earthly king. Eliud, the father of Eleazar, God is my help. He is my rest. Who is the father of Mathan, which means gracefulness of God. God is the help, Eleazar, through Mathan, his gracefulness. And he has Jacob. Now, why another Jacob? It's a new Jacob. It's the Jacob that comes from righteousness, not the one from the Old Testament that led to all the chaos from the 12 tribes and all the rest of the stories. And this Jacob, this new Jacob, is the father of Joseph, who is the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born. And his name, Jesus, from the Hebrew Yeshua, the Lord shall save, right? Fascinating. Now God has I got to get in here. I got to take control of this line. Let's put righteousness through Zadok in, and it leads to Jesus. And if you notice, we didn't give you this verse. Darn it, I just thought about it. But remember the rest of the story. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But just as a tip on what's coming, Joseph doesn't want to marry the Virgin Mary because he knows, not his kid. And the angel says, no, you will. And you will call his name Jesus, right? Why? Because as the Gospel of Matthew says, because he will save his people, right? It's embedded in his name. So you can see with all of this going on that genealogy is of utmost import because it sets the tone for the Gospel of Matthew. We'll talk more about it tomorrow in our live stream and maybe even at the end of the week. But understand that it's crucial, it's crucial for us to know Scripture. Not just to read it in an historicizing manner, where I'm looking to find historical data, or to even personalize the characters. You can see embedded in each and every one of these names, as crazy as they may sound to our modern ears, they have meaning. And that meaning is to show that when things were done man's way, that line went way crooked. All three triads until the middle of the third one when God got back involved and established his righteousness, which leads to the Christ who saves his people. Right? It's like that's magnificent, but it's crucial for us that we understand that stuff. I know it's hard. Sometimes, we don't all get it. We actually, that's what we do. We spend all our time doing it. So I get that it's more difficult for some of us than others to fight through all that kind of stuff. But if you want it, you want to learn it, you want to study it, just be with us. That's why we come here and work so hard every single day. We have stuff here, warriorsaints.org. We have our great program, Understanding the Bible, which goes through and does exactly what it says, helps you understand the Bible. Our Matthew series, we talk about this in great detail and explain it so you're like, I got it. Because that's the important part. Then you can get out there and live it. All right, Warrior Saints, I'm done rambling. Love you, beautiful people. I hope this week of Christmas is good for you. We'll be back tomorrow to talk more about Joseph and Jesus and all that good stuff. And until then, as always, keep walking on the way of the Warrior Saint.